Okay, I'm gonna let people in. Welcome to our call for the week. Just my technical difficulties getting on, but thank you for being here for those of you who have joined. We are going to be talking about growth mindset this week. And going through the email, I do want to start a little bit differently this week. So if you could grab a piece of paper, it can literally be anything, a receipt. If you're on a walk, you can do this mentally, but just grab a piece of paper. I'll give you a
If you're on a walk, do it in your notes.
Yeah, or just in your mind is fine too. But I want you to draw a line on that piece of paper, just a long line. And on one side of it, I want you to write can change and improve upon. And the other side of it, write so one side's going to be let's do it from on the left side, not changeable at all. And on the right side, can be changed, can change to a great extent. So we're going to have a scale from not very changeable or not changeable at all on the left to can change to a great extent. So that's your scale. And I'm going to give you some items to place upon that scale. Some describing characteristics or some things that I want you to think about you personally and put them on that scale. So the first one being, again, that scale is not changeable to can change to a great extent. The first one being creativity. And you can just write it anywhere that you think it falls on that line. So creativity is the first one. Physical strength is the next one. Patience is the next. Flexibility. Courage. Musicality. So like instruments, anything music related, singing, playfulness, and the last one, sexiness. So you're putting those along your sliding scale from not changeable to can change to a great extent. And if anyone would be willing to give a little share to kind of where some of those, it doesn't even have to be every single one, but maybe where some of those, like a handful of them fell or you place them upon this sliding scale. If anyone's willing to share, that would be wonderful.
Jess, was flexibility like physical or mental flexibility?
You can make it whichever one you would like. So it could be like your rigidness, or it could be like your physical flexibility.
Okay.
I'll let that be choose your own adventure.
So I think for me, for a few of these, a lot of what comes to mind is like how stressed out I am. Sorry, I'm walking and a car went by. That's like how much I feel like I can change those.
Okay.
Like creativity or I mean flexibility mentally, obviously. Or sexiness, or just some of those more ones. I feel like I have more capacity for those ones when I have less on my plate.
Okay.
And I think can see how it would feel like those are impossible to change if you're in fight or flight in survival mode for most of us.
Yeah, for sure. Anyone else want to share? Thanks for sharing, Michaela. I know when I did this like 10 years ago, probably, gosh, yeah, probably 10 years ago. I for sure like some of these when I looked at them, I was like, musicality, I can't change that. Like bottom of the scale. I don't do music, I don't sing, I don't play an instrument. No, not talented in that. Um, and it was just interesting to see along that sliding scale where I placed the ones that maybe I feel like I had just a little bit more natural ability for, those ones felt more changeable. And the ones that maybe felt more fixed or I had to work on, or I hadn't maybe spent much time in, um, were more on the other end of the scale, like the not so changeable. Even like creativity, I was like, well, I'm not super creative, but creativity can mean a lot of different things. That's the other thing about these words is that they can mean different things. Creativity could be, I think in initially taking this and doing this, I was like, oh, creativity, that's like, I wouldn't like consider myself like an artist, but creativity could be like creativity in movement, and it could be creativity in creating programming for someone. Like there's so many ways that these words can be looked at. And a lot of ideas from today's email and call are come from Mindset, this book by Carol Dweck, and I've read this multiple times. It's such a great book and has had a lot of impact on just bringing awareness to a growth and fixed mindset in how I do my life and how I have my self-talk and how I talk to my kids and how I help my kids with their mindset things. And a lot of people, Carol talks about how, some people can have a tendency to have like a more fixed mindset, and kind of that idea that I talked about in my experience of going through this the first time, where those things that I didn't feel like such a natural ability, I was like, oh, those are more fixed. But reality being, there is um there's more of a scale when it comes to these things, and anything that we choose into spending time on, giving our efforts to, putting a practice with, like there is the ability to create change there. There is through the even having more excitement when it comes to our learning and experiences and being okay with failure. Those are all things that just add to the bucket and the tools of having the ability to create and make those changes. So she talks about this challenge of these little kids, like more like grade school age, and they're they have like these puzzles where they're given a harder puzzle and a harder puzzle. And I just think of this one kid that she talks about that's like, oh my gosh, like I'm so excited. And he knows that he or she, I don't remember, but they know that there's a challenge coming and they're excited about it, instead of like, yeah, just give me the same puzzle on repeat. And through different experiences, lenses, even traumas in life, we can get into more of a fixed mindset or a narrative of that's not changeable. I can't change that thing. And another part of it too is if we have a fixed mindset, I had you guys put down or think about a handful of things, but this can apply to so many areas and aspects of life, whether we are working on specifically nutrition goals, training goals, learning, student goals. And we can, if we have a fixed mindset around the things, around what we believe, then failing as we try to prove something. So as we're trying to prove something and failing at that is like reaffirms basically like, see, I'm just not good at that. Or this is taking too long. I'm just never going to hit that goal. Or see, I messed up on my food again, so I'm just not good at this. I don't know, I can't be a healthy person, right? Or I can't have a life that's full of different wellness aspects because I just am continuing to fail. Rather than looking at that more of kind of that eagerness of that kid of like, let's do the challenge, right? Let's learn from this. And this is something that I invite my clients to do a lot, is like, as we're juggling things and carrying different responsibilities and also making an effort to have more of a priority on ourselves. And a lot of times that's where people come to us as coaches, is like, I want to have more accountability and priority on myself, and I want some support in doing that. And ultimately, it's one of my favorite jobs as a coach, is helping people see how much they're truly capable of. When I have a client come to me, I fully believe that, you know, whether this is a therapy client or a coaching client, I fully believe that that they have the capacity to create the change in their life that they want, and that they already essentially have what they need within them to create that change. It's going to take some time and effort, and changing patterns and neural pathways and things like that, which all takes time. But even along the way, when there's bumps and roadblocks and life happenings that are out of our control, those are all opportunities for learning. All opportunities to change the way that we approach something that maybe we've always done in the same way, which most of us are really good at getting into autopilot. So when we approach something the same way over and over and we're not seeing the change, we need to approach it differently, and learn through the things that are coming at us, and learning that we can find safety in a different response, if that makes sense. So a lot of that comes from that mindset space. If we can believe that we have the ability and the capacity to create change, to learn as we go, that challenge and maybe even things taking longer than we anticipated, life happenings that we can't control, if all of those things are actually in a way a benefit and we can believe that, then we learn how to navigate these new lifestyle habits and behaviors through the chaos, if that makes sense. I like family setting. They live there, so they help cook, they help feed the horses, they had equine therapy. And we would always, like, every single one of them would have some sort of a honeymooning phase where we're like, no, we want the like behaviors to come up so we can have the opportunity in a safe, empowering, supportive environment to help them shift that behavioral response, right? Because we can't change the way necessarily life is coming at us, but we can choose how we respond to the scenario, the situation. So we would kind of wait for that honeymoon phase to pass so that we could like see the behaviors start to come out and give them some safety and redirection in that experience, rather than, you're not going to learn a whole lot if you're just like, you know, not hitting any roadblocks. You're missing the challenging pieces that actually help with the growth and the change, the changing the narrative, the changing of the behavior, the changing of how we respond to the stimulus of life happenings. So instead of thoughts around like, you know, when life finally calms down, then, you know, I will do this. But instead of having kind of that fixed mindset of like, I'm too busy, I have too much going on. What if we learn how to do the thing that we really want and how we want to feel in the midst of that, so that it can become more of just our lifestyle and our overall well-being? Because I think as coaches, most of us have our clients come to us because in some way, shape, or form, they want to feel better. They want to feel differently than they currently feel. And so why not start taking those baby steps into, I don't think any of us coaches, none of us coaches, I can speak for all of us, are going to say, let's overhaul your life immediately. We're going to start with small changes and allow you to see the growth and the empowerment and the narrative shift that can come in those small changes, choosing into action how you want to feel, how those things that you want to change. So basically the whole idea that either you have it or you don't, there's not truth to that. And with neuroplasticity, science tells us that our brains are always evolving, creating new pathways and strengthening existing ones based on what we practice and believe. So somewhere in our life, I think, we all also handle challenges differently. And I think a lot of children, sorry, someone's let someone in. A lot of children, kind of going back to that puzzle thing, initially see challenge, and even if they make a mistake, is like, ooh, but let's figure it out, let's problem solve, instead of, we start to get things coming at us as we grow and evolve and go through experiences. And maybe someone told us, or we took on this belief that like, oh, if you fail, you're just terrible at that. Or if you fail, you're just a failure. But like, truly, are we ever failing if we're choosing to learn from the experience? And I would say firsthand, my most powerful growth has come in the hard parts, the parts where I've had to learn and shift and get curious and give myself compassion for whatever's going on. So choosing to learn and problem solve, try again, you're rewiring your brain. And that's the biology of it. It's the beauty of our brain having that much, like, it's so incredible to think that we can keep that evolution of self growing over time for the span of our life if we're choosing into that, if we're choosing into things that challenge us and invite ourselves to think about things differently. I tell my clients a lot that I want them to meet themselves with curiosity and compassion. And oftentimes as adults, we can be very critical of ourselves, whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, we have a lot of narrative pieces that have come in from other people, ourselves, experiences. And when we can start to pause and give some like space to that story or that dialogue or that thing that's coming in that's no longer serving us, we get to be the narrator and rewrite that and say, I used to always, yeah, this food belief came from somewhere, but how can I rewrite that? How can I flip it? Or it's not serving me. So how do so in the sense of like, I'll just share an example, like that food is bad. I can't have that food because it's bad, whatever that bad food is, right? And so we start to create a narrative around that. And then we start to create a restriction around certain foods. And sometimes that list just starts to pile, right? Instead of shifting that narrative to, food is food, how I feel my body is how it's going to impact how I feel. That's true for every human being. If I don't make things off limits, then I'm not in this space of restriction. Or if I eventually choose into, if I tell myself like peanut M&Ms, those are the worst. If I have those, I'm bad. But then what if that's my favorite candy in the whole world and I finally choose it because I'm so sick of restricting peanut M&Ms? Well, see, I failed. I'm always failing. I always go back to those stinking peanut M&Ms, but what if they weren't even off limits? What if I had a mindset that was, yeah, those peanut M&Ms, if I have those for breakfast and head to the gym, probably not going to feel that great, but I am an adult and I have money and I have a car and I can go buy peanut M&Ms any time of day. Maverick is open 24 hours a day. I can go buy peanut M&Ms whatever I want. Instead, placing that into, it's not a bad food, but it's maybe not the food that is most effective for how I want to feel, but I'm also not going to restrict myself from that food. So I can plan my day around the things that make me feel most nourished and energized and help with my sleep and help me toward my goals. And guess what? I could have some peanut M&Ms every day if I wanted to. So coming from this place of very rigid and strict and the mental layers that can come with labeling that food as bad, and then that turns into I'm bad and see into like a shame cycle. So instead, it's getting curious, getting compassionate toward ourselves, creating a pause and better understanding, where did that belief even come from? Does it serve me? And maybe when you were little, someone told you, if you eat those peanut M&Ms, you're going to be fat. Like, but if you simply eat some peanut M&Ms, that's not the direct truth to that, right? So again, growth and fixed mindset can be applied in so many different ways. And that's why I've read this book multiple times, because when I read it, I'm in a different space in my life, and I have these different like awarenesses that come up with it. So just some simple ways. We're not doing a full immediate overhaul on all the things, but it's just like, even if you can catch yourself in some kind of narrative that's not serving you and bring some compassion and curiosity to that, it can go a long way. So swapping the I can't with I can't yet. So just a tiny shift that makes a huge, yeah, bringing these up, and then notice how the even feelings in your body shift as you start to believe a different phrase. Instead of I can't, done, black and white thinking, it's I can't yet. Or it's just that, such a simple word. And this is one that my kids probably get sick of me here saying to them. One of my kids has much more of a tendency to make those like black and white statements of I can't ... And she knows now I actually don't even have to say anything. If I hear her say I can't, and I give her a little glance and I say, what? She'll say, yet. And so I know it starts to make those shifts for her. Instead of feeling like she has to be a perfectionist at something right away, it can help her to say like, well, I can't quite yet, right? Or I'm learning this, or I'm still new at this. Reminding ourselves, and in my case with parenting, reminding my kids like, this is new to you. You're just learning this. So think, if you keep giving it reps and time, then it's going to look a lot different. It's choosing into the part that just kind of can feel heavy and sticky because it's new.
Jess, I was
Yeah.
just gonna say, I love, like, I always think of athletes because I think they're such a great example of growth mindset, working hard at something for, decades for some. And I think it's so easy to just label ourselves. I know so many women that when they mess up, like they want to implement maybe a calorie deficit, they mess up and they think they're a failure and they label themselves. It makes it so much harder versus just like, okay, I need more practice at this. Obviously, like I hit a roadblock, and I just looked up, and this is something I use with my kids especially, but I think it's a good reminder for all of us. Like LeBron James, for instance, he has made the most shots in the NBA history of all players, and he also holds the record for most shots missed. So I think just like that's like such a powerful thing for me, to remember, like, if you just quit trying, you wouldn't hold the most shots made.
Yep.
But he holds both records because he's taken more reps than probably anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like,
Yeah.
if you are failing or you're messing up or you're not kind of following through with the goals you set for yourself, instead of being so worried about your outcome and feeling like a failure, like start just focusing on the process and how you can improve the process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that share. Yeah, and it's like that kid once again of like, ooh, give me the challenge, like give me that puzzle that's hard, and watch my brain have to like pause in that moment and say, well, this isn't working, but what if I try this and this and this? To give ourselves that grace can go such a long way. And obviously there's the effort piece there, right? You got to keep giving the effort there. Um, and not, and this is where a coach comes in real handy, is like, okay, what are we doing the same that's not working, for us to be able to pan out with you and say, well, let's maybe create a new strategy around this, or how can I, that's part of our job as a coach, is to help you also start to come to this place where maybe your capacity is a lot smaller right now. And even to have someone ask a few questions starts to help you create that more of a pause and keep in that growth mindset. Trying new things, I think sometimes it can be easy. My husband said the other day, and I was like almost in tears about it because I thought it was so like profound, that he said, I drive to Salt Lake. He has to travel for work. And he's like, every morning that I've been driving to Salt Lake, he's like, there's these two like grown dads, all like elbow pads, knee pads, helmets. He's like, they're literally like grown dads. Well, he's assuming dads, but they're grown men figuring out how to skateboard at the skate park at like 6 in the morning. And I'm like, I love that so much. Like they're there before anybody else is. And he's like, they look like they've probably never skated, but they're like at the skate park trying to get good at something. Which is so cool because again, we can continue to learn skills. I heard this mom one day at gymnastics be like, oh, I wish I could do a cartwheel. And I did but bite my tongue a little bit, but I really wanted to turn around and be like, you could, like, if you wanted to, you could. You might not be choosing to put in the effort to be like at a gymnastics class every day, but if you wanted to do a cartwheel, why not do the stepping skills to get to that, right? Um, Celebrating effort, not just the outcomes. Talked a bit about this, but you you don't have to be hitting the goal immediately to be proud of how you're showing up. Like the confidence comes in the effort of showing up even when you're not quite to the goal, because all of those efforts, all of those choices, all of those droplets in the bucket of the thing you're working toward are going to help you get there. Choosing to not do them because it's not happening as fast as you want it to, you feel like you're failing. Oh my gosh, life is crazy. It's always something. Okay, well, yeah, life will continue to be crazy and there's going to always be something, but choosing to come back to you instead of, see, it's never going to work because my life is just too bizarre. If it's something that you really, really want, you can continue to show up and be proud of that showing up part, even if the goal takes longer than you anticipate. It's all moving toward what you're desiring. Letting feedback be your friend. So instead of just like being on edge about criticism, or even I like the word constructive feedback, when I bring stuff up with my kids, I like to talk to them about like, especially understanding their personalities and trying to explain to them like you're gonna get feedback and just straight up criticism throughout your life, but paying attention to maybe what's at the root of that, of whatever's being given to you. Maybe taking out the tone, depending on if it's like a teacher or coach and how that passionately came out. What is the root of what's trying to be taught there? And asking like, how do I maybe take that piece and let that apply to bettering, or working toward the goal? Um, Taking a learning lens into challenges. So again, with this, what is it teaching? What can I learn from this? Making a game out of it. If we can, this is my, like, this has been a big thing for me, is like letting go of like thinking I can control all the things to like find my inner peace. No, that inner peace came from really surrendering so many things in my life and choosing how I wanted to respond to certain situations, choosing how I was going to show up, choosing to learn in the hard instead of being, like almost expecting like, what's going to challenge me today and what do I get to learn from that? Having an expectation instead of the expectation being like, oh, I'm going to get to this place where it just doesn't feel hard. But if we're always growing, there's always going to be challenges. And so there's always the opportunity to learn. And a phrase that I also use with my kids a lot is, what an opportunity. Like, and I don't say that with like sarcasm, and I say it like really truly, how can this be an opportunity to learn from the circumstance? And getting inspired instead of intimidated, not getting in the game of comparison. When someone else is crushing it, or you see something you admire about somebody else, even paying attention to what comes up, right? Does jealousy come up? Does, like, what kind of feelings come up? And what can we learn from that too? If we have feelings of comparison or jealousy or, yeah, I think there's a lot to learn even from our own self responses. Um, Something that you maybe is another word is like something is triggering. What about that is triggering, and going inward and saying, what about that bothers me? Or why am I intimidated by that person? Or yeah, just looking at it as what can I learn from that person? What is this feeling that's coming up for me? What can that teach me about this scenario, or how, or maybe it's something that I truly desire and I'm not quite there yet, but I see that person living that desire I have, right? It always comes back to, people are such beautiful, beautiful mirrors. When someone else brings up something in us, it's worth examining. Putting a note in your phone, putting a note on a notebook and saying, what was going on when someone something did or said or feedback, or that I just even viewed on Instagram? Why did that bring something up for me? And taking some time to examine that. Tracking growth, not just wins. So a big thing that I will reflect back with and talk about with my clients is, I know we can't know exactly, but I will often say, like, or they start to bring up because it's a common question. I would have handled this situation very differently 2 months ago, 3 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago. This never would have been my response. So panning out and reflecting and giving ourselves, instead of just raise the bar, raise the bar, raise the bar, raise the bar. Yes, we can always be in growth, but it's important to stop and reflect and say, how might I have handled this situation? Or something maybe really challenging comes up, and you can stand back after that situation and say, like, wow, I handled that so different. That felt like there's that new neural pathway that I've been doing the steps, and it's felt like a lot of falling down, but then I quickly got back up instead of getting into a spinning headspace cycle with that. So again, it's not just, change all the things all the time, all the things that are coming up in a overnight span. It's starting to create some curiosity and compassion around, like, where is my mindset? Because again, most of us have different areas in our life that maybe are a little bit more fixed, or a little bit more, have a little bit more growth mindset. And so it's taking that, some of these pieces to the areas that feel a little bit more fixed, and even bringing awareness to the areas that feel a bit more fixed, to start to create a new narrative shift. So that's, and then again, loving yourself through the process, seeing the opportunity in the process, that we're all learning. No one has everything in their life perfectly together. And when we can give ourselves that grace, give others grace, we're all just here. And as coaches, we're here to support that process and help in mindset shifts as well. So, any questions at all? I know we went a little over on time, but any questions or
No,
comments?
so good. I just have to say, whoever has not read Growth Mindset by Carol Dweck, like, add that to the top 5 books to read on behavioral change. It's such a good one. That and
Yes. She cut out, at least on my end, but you said Atomic Habits, right? Yeah. Both awesome books.
yes.
Because mindset is everything. When it comes to our actions, we need to address the overarching umbrella. We can follow a meal plan, we can check the boxes, but if we're not creating the new neural pathways, it tends to be temporary. It tends to be a means to an end instead of an approach to life. So just continue to meet yourself with curiosity and compassion and question the stories that come up for you. Where did that come from? Maybe you don't even know, but that's okay. It's starting with the curiosity that's going to help into, oh, that's actually a very rigid, fixed mindset around that. Letting the curiosity continue to help you in the growth. So thank you for being on.
Thanks, Jess.
Yep. Have a great day.